The dust hung in the air like a brown curtain. Hyun coughed into his sleeve as he walked through the ruined street. The buildings around him looked like broken teeth. Some had holes in their walls. Others had no roofs at all. This was what Seoul looked like now. This was home. 3 years had passed since the Vulcans came. 3 years since the bright ships filled the sky and the war ended in 6 days. Hyun remembered the sounds. The explosions. The screaming. He remembered his mother pushing him into the basement. He remembered waiting for her to come back. She never did. Now Hyun was 12 years old and alone. While not completely alone, Nari looked after him. She was 16 and worked in the communal kitchen. She made sure he ate. She made sure he had a place to sleep. But Nari had her own problems. Everyone did. Hyun walked carefully through the checkpoint. The Vulcan soldiers stood like purple statues in their armor. They were tall, taller than any human. Their skin was violet and smooth. They had 4 fingers on each hand instead of 5. Their eyes were completely black like holes in their faces. Hyun tried not to stare. Staring was dangerous. He had earned 10 credits today. An old woman paid him to carry her bags from the ration center. 10 credits was good. 10 credits could buy food. Maybe even something extra. As Hyun passed the checkpoint, he heard voices. Vulcan voices. He had learned some of their language over the years. You had to learn it if you wanted to survive. The words came in harsh sounds that hurt his throat when he tried to speak them. 2 soldiers stood near the wall. They had taken off their helmets. One had a scar across his face. The other looked younger with smoother skin. They were arguing about something. Hyun caught a few words. Supply, mistake, no food. Hyun stopped. He should keep walking. Getting close to Vulcan soldiers was stupid. They could arrest you for anything. Looking at them wrong. Walking too fast. Being outside at the wrong time. But something made him stay and listen. The soldier with the scar kicked the wall. His armor made a loud clang.
He said something in Vulcan that sounded angry.
The younger one replied in a tired voice. They had not received their meal rations. Some computer had made an error. They would not eat tonight. Yoon looked at the 10 credits in his hand. He looked at the soldiers. They were the enemy. They had destroyed his city. They had taken his mother. They had turned his life into this gray existence of ration lines and curfews and fear, but they looked hungry. And Hyun knew what hungry felt like. Before he could think about it too much, Hyun walked toward them. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might break through his chest. The soldiers saw him coming. They put their hands on their weapons. The one with the scar said something sharp. A warning. Hyun stopped a few meters away. He held up his hands to show he had no weapons. Then in broken Vulcan he spoke. His accent was terrible. His grammar was worse. But he managed to say it. You hungry? I buy food. For you. The soldiers stared at him. For a long moment nobody moved. Hyun wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Maybe they did not understand. Maybe they thought he was trying to poison them. Maybe they would arrest him just for speaking. The younger soldier, the one called Kolix, said something to his companion. The scarred soldier, Tavron, shook his head. They argued in quick, harsh whispers. Hyun caught a few words. Trap. Strange. Why? Finally, Tavron looked at Hyun. He studied the boy for a long time. Then he spoke in broken human language. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. You feed us. Why? Hyun thought about the question. Why was he doing this? He did not know. It just felt right. He shrugged. You look hungry. I know hungry. His bad feeling, something changed in Tavron's black eyes. Some of the hardness left his face. He looked at Kolix. The younger soldier nodded slowly. Tavron turned back to Hyun. Show us place. Hyun led them through the broken streets. People saw them coming and scattered. A human child walking with 2 Vulcan soldiers. It looked wrong. It looked like betrayal. Hyun saw the angry faces. He saw Nari's neighbor spit on the ground. But he kept walking. The communal kitchen was in an old restaurant. The Vulcans had left it alone because humans needed to eat. Starving workers were useless. Nari was inside stirring a large pot. She looked up when the door opened. Her face went pale when she saw the soldiers. Hyun, what are you doing? She whispered in Korean. They are hungry, Hyun said. I want to buy them dinner. Nari stared at him like he had lost his mind. Maybe he had, but she did not argue. She was too smart to argue in front of Vulcan soldiers. Instead, she nodded and prepared 3 bowls. Rice, Kimchi stew. Simple food, poor food. But it was hot and it was real. Hyun paid his 10 credits. All of them. Nari took the money with shaking hands. Then she placed the bowls on a table near the back. Away from the windows. Away from other eyes, the soldiers sat down. Their armor made scratching sounds against the old chairs. They removed their helmets completely. Up close, Hyun could see their faces better. They looked tired. Really tired. The kind of tired that sleep could not fix. Tavren picked up the spoon. He looked at it like it might explode. Then he tasted the stew. His black eyes widened. He took another bite. Then another. Kolix did the same. They ate quickly, like men who had forgotten what real food tasted like. Hyun sat across from them. He had his own small bowl that Nari had given him for free. He ate slowly, watching the soldiers. After a few minutes, when their bowls were half empty, he spoke. "What is your home like?" he asked in Velkin. The soldiers looked up. Kolix spoke first. His human language was better than Tavren's. Hot, much sun, red sand everywhere. "We live in military colony. Train every day since small. Do you have family?" Hyun asked. Tavren nodded. "Mother, 2 brothers. They serve Empire too. Do you miss them?" The question seemed to surprise Tavren. He put down his spoon. For a moment he just looked at his bowl. Then he spoke quietly. "Yes, miss them much." They talked for an hour. Hyun asked about their planet, their training, their ships. The soldiers answered. At first their answers were short and careful. But slowly they relaxed. They told him about the red deserts of Velka, about the 3 moons that lit the night sky, about the honor codes that governed their lives. Hyun told them about Seoul before the war, about the lights in the crowds, about his mother and how she used to make soup on cold days, about school and his friends and all the things that were gone now. When the bowls were empty, Tavren stood. He looked at Hyun for a long time. Then he placed his fist over his heart. It was a Velkin gesture of respect. Kolix did the same. "Thank you, small human," Tavren said. "This is unexpected gift," Hyun smiled. "You are welcome." The soldiers put on their helmets and left. Hyun watched them walk back into the dusty street. Nari came and sat beside him. "That was the craziest thing I've ever seen," she said. "Maybe," Hyun said, "but they were just hungry, like us." That night, Tavren and Kolix returned to their barracks. They did not speak about what happened. They prepared their equipment for the next day's patrol. They cleaned their weapons. They performed all their duties, but neither of them could sleep. They lay in their bunks, staring at the ceiling. Both were thinking about the same thing. A small human boy with dirt on his face and kindness in his eyes. A boy who had every reason to hate them. A boy who bought them dinner instead. Something had changed. They did not know what yet. But something inside them had shifted, like a crack forming in solid stone. And through that crack, a dangerous question was starting to grow. What if everything they had been taught was wrong? The barracks were cold that night. They were always cold. Metal walls, metal floors, metal beds. Everything in the Velkin military was hard and cold, just like the Empire wanted its soldiers to be. Tavren lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. His armor was off, stacked neatly beside his bed. He could hear other soldiers snoring in the darkness. 50 soldiers in this room alone. 50 warriors who had conquered Earth without question. But Tavren could not sleep. He kept thinking about the boy. The small human with the dirty face and the bright eyes. The one who had spent his only money to feed them. The one who had asked about their families. Across the room, Kolix was not sleeping either. Tavren could see his friend's eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Velkin's eyes did that when they were thinking hard. When they were troubled, finally Kolix got up. He moved quietly across the room and sat on the edge of Tavren's bunk. He spoke in a whisper. "Are you thinking about it too?" "Yes," Tavren said. "It makes no sense," Kolix whispered. "We are his enemy. We destroyed his city. We killed his people. Why would he help us?" Tavren had no answer. The military had taught them that humans were weak. Cowards who surrendered after 6 days of fighting. Primitives who could not even leave their own solar system. Humans were supposed to be inferior in every way. But that boy had not seemed weak. He had walked right up to armed soldiers. He had shown them kindness when he could have shown them hate. That took courage. Real courage. Maybe it was a trick, Tavren said, though he did not believe it. Maybe someone told him to do it. To make us weak, Kolix shook his head. "Did you see his face?" That was not acting. That was something real. They sat in silence for a long time. Around them, the other soldiers slept. None of them had met a human child who bought them dinner. None of them had looked into eyes that held compassion instead of fear. I want to learn more, Kolek said suddenly, about humans. Real information, not military briefings. That is dangerous, Tavren warned. If the commanders find out, I know, but I have to know. Was everything we were taught wrong? The next morning, Kolek went to the database terminal. Every barracks had one. Soldiers could access information about the occupation, maps, orders, supply schedules, and cultural files about the conquered species. Kolek started reading. He expected propaganda, military assessments of human weakness, lists of their technological failures. Instead, he found something else. Human poetry, stories, philosophy, art, thousands of years of it. The database had it all, collected by occupation intelligence officers. It was supposed to help soldiers understand the enemy. But Kolek wondered if anyone actually read it. He read about human concepts: love, mercy, forgiveness, sacrifice. The Velkin language barely had words for some of these ideas. The Empire valued strength, honor through conquest, victory at any cost. But humans valued something different. They valued each other. Kolek found stories of humans helping strangers, of humans risking their lives for people they did not know, of humans choosing kindness even when it cost them everything. The military briefings had never mentioned any of this. He spent hours at the terminal. By the time he finished, his mind was spinning. Everything he thought he knew felt wrong. The Empire had taught him that humans were inferior. But these stories showed wisdom that Velkin culture had forgotten. Or maybe never had. Tavren tried to ignore it all. He told himself that one kind boy did not prove anything. Maybe the child was unusual. Maybe most humans were still weak and scared. He tried to focus on his duties. Patrol, checkpoint, paperwork, the routine of occupation. But he could not stop thinking about Hyun, about the smile, about the question, "Do you miss your family?" Such a simple question, but no one had asked Tavren that in 3 years. The military did not care if you missed home. The military only cared if you followed orders. That afternoon, Tavren made a decision. He found Kolek during their break. They walked to the edge of the military zone where no one could hear them. "I want to see him again," Tavren said. The boy Kolek looked surprised. Then he nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. It is against regulations," Tavren said. "Fraternizing with locals. We could be disciplined, I know," Kolek said. "But I need to understand. Why did he do it? What makes humans like that?" They found Hyun the next day. He was in the street, helping an old woman carry heavy bags. The woman could barely walk. Hyun was small and the bags were large, but he struggled with them anyway. He did not complain. He just helped. Tavren and Kolek watched from a distance. They were in full armor, helmets on, weapons ready. Just 2 more soldiers on patrol. No one noticed them watching one small boy. The old woman tried to pay Hyun with credits. Hyun shook his head. He pointed to his own small bag of rice. He said something they could not hear. Then he gave the woman half his rice, half of his food. When he barely had enough for himself, Kolek felt something break inside his chest. This was not propaganda. This was not a trick. This was just who this boy was. He helped people because that was what humans did. Even when they had nothing, even when they were suffering. They still helped each other. Tavren stepped out from their hiding spot. Hyun saw them. For a moment, fear crossed his face. Soldiers appearing suddenly was never good. But then he recognized them. His face brightened. "Hello," Hyun said in Velkin. His accent was still terrible. But he was trying. Tavren reached into his pack. He pulled out 3 military ration bars. Each bar had enough nutrition to feed a human for a full day. He held them out to Hyun. "For you," Tavren said in human language. "You need food." Hyun's eyes went wide. But he did not take the bars immediately. Instead, he looked up at the soldiers with concern. "Will you get in trouble?" Hyun asked. "If someone sees?" That question hit Tavren like a hammer. The boy was worried about them, about enemy soldiers. He had so many problems of his own: hunger, danger, a ruined city, but he was worried that they might face punishment for helping him. Tavren knelt down. He was tall, even kneeling. but it brought him closer to Hyun's level. He pressed the ration bars into the boy's hands. "Do not worry about us," Tavren said. "Take food, stay alive." Hyun took the bars. Tears filled his eyes. He bowed, a human gesture of respect. "Thank you. Thank you so much." As they walked away, Kolix spoke quietly. His voice was shaking. "We are on the wrong side," he said. "We are the bad ones in this war." Tavren wanted to argue. He wanted to defend the Empire, the honor, the glory, the mission. But he could not find the words. Because Kolix was right. They had conquered a planet of people who helped each other, who showed kindness to their enemies, who worried about soldiers even while starving. The Empire called these people weak. But the Empire was wrong. Humans were not weak. Humans were strong in ways the Velkans had never understood. They had strength of spirit, strength of heart, strength that came from caring about others more than themselves. That night, both soldiers lay awake again. But this time they were not confused. They understood now. They had spent 3 years occupying Earth, 3 years enforcing the will of the Empire, 3 years on the wrong side. The question was no longer whether humans deserved mercy. The question was what Tavren and Kolix were going to do about it. Change was coming. They could feel it like storm clouds gathering. Soon they would have to make a choice, serve the Empire or serve what was right, and they both knew which one they would choose. The announcement came on a cold morning. All soldiers were ordered to report to the command center. Tavren and Kolix stood in formation with hundreds of others. The room smelled like metal and fear. Commander Vec Thorn stood on the platform. He was old for a Velkan. His face had scars from a dozen wars. His eyes were cold and empty. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall. "New orders," he said. "Sector 7 will be cleared. All humans will be relocated to labor camps. This will increase production efficiency. Families will be separated by work capacity. Children under 16 will go to re-education facilities." Tavren felt his blood turn to ice. Sector 7, that was where Hyun lived. That was where the communal kitchen was. That was where hundreds of families were just trying to survive. The commander continued, "The operation will begin in 48 hours. All soldiers in units 12 through 20 will participate. You will process the civilians. You will separate them according to protocol. You will use force if necessary." Beside Tavren, Kolix had gone completely still. They were in Unit 15. They would be part of this. They would be the ones taking children from their homes. They would be the ones loading Hyun onto a transport ship. The commander dismissed them. Soldiers filed out of the hall. Everyone was talking about the operation. Some seemed excited. New orders meant change. Change meant something different to do. Most just seemed indifferent. It was another job. Another duty. Tavren and Kolix walked back to their barracks in silence. When they were alone, Kolix finally spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. "We cannot do this." Tavren nodded. "I know, if we refuse, they will execute us. Desertion means death. Treason means worse." "I know," Tavren said again. They sat together for a long time. Around them, other soldiers prepared their gear, cleaned their weapons, checked their armor, getting ready to tear families apart, getting ready to put children in camps. And not one of them questioned it. That evening, Tavren went to find Hyun. He had to warn him. It was treason. It was betrayal of the Empire. But he did not care anymore. The Empire was wrong. Everything it stood for was wrong. He found Hyun near the old library. The building was half destroyed, but some books remained. Hyun was inside with a group of younger children. He was reading to them, teaching them, trying to keep their minds alive in this dead city. Tavren watched from the doorway. Hyun was reading a story about a hero, about someone who stood up against evil even when it meant sacrifice. The children listened with wide eyes. They believed in heroes. They still had hope. Hyun saw Tavren and smiled. He told the children to keep reading to each other. Then he came to the door. "Hello," he said in Velkan. His accent was getting better. Tavren knelt down. He needed to be at eye level for this. He needed Hyun to understand. "Listen carefully," Tavren said. "In 2 days, soldiers will come. They will take everyone in this sector. They will separate families. They will take children to camps. You need to hide. You need to run." Hyun's face went pale, but he did not panic. He was too used to bad news. He just nodded slowly. "What about the others?" he asked, "the younger ones?" "I cannot leave them. That was exactly what Tavren had expected. That was exactly why this boy was special. Even facing danger, he thought of others first. You have to save yourself, Tavren said, please. Hyun shook his head. If they take everyone, I go with them. I will not leave the children alone. Something broke inside Tavren. This child. This small, powerless human child. He had more courage than any soldier Tavren had ever met. He would walk into a camp rather than abandon others. That was strength. That was real strength. Hyun reached up and touched Tavren's armored hand. You are a good person, Tavren. I hope you find peace. Those words destroyed him. After everything the Empire had done. After all the destruction and pain. This boy still saw good in him. Still hoped for his peace. How could someone be so kind? How could someone forgive so completely? Tavren stood. His vision was blurred. Felkins did not cry often, but he felt something hot on his face. He turned and left before Hyun could see. He found Kolix waiting outside. His friend took one look at his face and understood. He will not run, Tavren said. He will stay with the children. Kolix nodded. Then we know what we have to do. Desertion. Yes. They will hunt us. They will kill us, I know. But if we can save even some of them, then it will be worth it. They made their plans that night. First, they had to disable their tracker implants. Every Velkin soldier had one. A small device embedded in the neck. It monitored location and vital signs. Removing it was incredibly painful, and it would immediately alert command. They would have to do it at the last moment. Right before they acted, they would get one chance. One window of time before the kill squads came for them. Kolix accessed the military database one more time. He downloaded maps, evacuation routes, security protocols, everything that might help. Then he wiped the access logs. It would not hide them for long, but every minute counted. Tavren gathered weapons, not just their standard rifles. They needed the heavy ones, the ones meant for combat. If they were going to fight the Empire, they needed firepower. They found Nari the next day. She was at the communal kitchen, preparing the last meals before the relocation. Her hands were shaking. Everyone knew what was coming. The fear was like smoke in the air. Tavren and Kolix walked in wearing full armor. People scattered. Velkins in the kitchen meant trouble, but the soldiers went straight to Nari. We need to talk, Tavren said in human language. Somewhere private. Nari looked terrified, but she led them to the back room. Once the door closed, Kolix removed his helmet. Nari gasped. Soldiers never showed their faces to humans. Listen carefully, Kolix said. We are going to help you. Tomorrow, when the relocation begins, we will create confusion. We will fake evacuation orders. We will open escape routes. But you need to organize people. Get the children ready, especially the young ones. They need to move fast when we give the signal. Nari stared at them. Why, she whispered. Why would you help us? Tavren thought about how to answer. Because a small boy bought us dinner. Because he showed us what real strength looks like. Because we were wrong about everything. But all he said was, because it is right. Nari's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. I will get everyone ready. But you know what will happen to you, we know, Kolix said. Just save the children. That is all that matters. That night, Tavren and Kolix stood on the roof of their barracks. They looked out over the city, over the ruins and the darkness, over the place where they had been occupiers, the place where they would become something else, rebels, traitors, deserters, or maybe just what they should have been all, along soldiers who served what was right. Instead of what they were told, tomorrow would bring death. They knew that. The Empire did not forgive desertion. The kill squads would come. The hunt would be brutal. But tomorrow would also bring salvation for some. Children would escape. Families would reach the mountains. Hope would survive. And it had all started with a bowl of soup. A simple meal shared with strangers. One act of kindness that changed everything. Tavren looked at Kolix. You ready? No, Kolix said honestly. But we'd do it anyway, they clasped hands. A warrior's promise. Tomorrow they would betray the only life they had ever known. Tomorrow they would become enemies of the Empire. Tomorrow they would finally be on the right side. Dawn came red and angry. Tavren and Kolix stood in the armory loading weapons. Around them, other soldiers did the same. Everyone was preparing for the relocation operation. Everyone except two. Tavren reached behind his neck. He felt the tracker implant under his skin. A small bump near his spine. He pulled out a combat knife. Kolix did the same. They looked at each other. Once they did this, there was no going back. The Empire would know immediately. The kill squads would mobilize within minutes. For the children, Kolix said. For the children, Tavren agreed. They cut. The pain was incredible, white-hot agony that made their vision blur. But they kept cutting. Blood ran down their necks. Their hands shook. But they did not stop until the implants fell onto the floor. Somewhere in the command center, alarms were already screaming. 2 tracker signals had just vanished. 2 soldiers had just committed the ultimate crime. They had minutes, maybe less. They grabbed the stolen weapons and ran. Sector 7 was already surrounded by military vehicles. The relocation was beginning early. Soldiers were moving into position. Civilians were being herded into the streets. Children were crying. Parents were begging. It was chaos. Tavren and Kolix arrived at the checkpoint. The guards there knew them. They waved them through without question. Just 2 more soldiers joining the operation, but inside the sector they split up. Kolix went to the command post. He had the access codes. He could fake orders. Tavren went to find Nari. Kolix entered the command post like he belonged there. He walked straight to the communication terminal. He uploaded the fake evacuation orders he had prepared. Sector 7 civilians to be redirected to alternate location. New routes. Different transports. The orders looked official. They had proper codes. Proper formatting. It would take the commanders maybe 10 minutes to realize they were fake. 10 minutes of confusion. 10 minutes for people to run. Tavren found Nari at the communal kitchen. She had gathered almost 200 people. Mostly children and elderly. The ones who could not work in camps. The ones who would suffer most. Go now, Tavren said. Follow the old subway tunnels. East tunnels lead to mountains. My partner has created confusion. Use it. Hyun was there, standing with the younger children. When he saw Tavren, his eyes went wide. You are helping us, Hyun said. It was not a question. It was wonder. Tavren knelt down one last time. He looked at this brave, kind boy who had changed everything. You taught me, Tavren said. You taught me what strength really means. Now run. Live. Remember. Hyun threw his arms around Tavren's neck. The soldier froze. Velkans did not hug. They did not show affection. But this small human was holding him like family. Like someone who mattered. Tavren hugged him back. Just for a moment. Then he pushed Hyun toward Nari. Go, now. Nari led them away. 200 souls moving through the shadows. Heading for the tunnels. Heading for freedom. Tavren watched until they disappeared. Then he went to find his friend. The alarm sirens started wailing. The fake orders had been discovered. Soldiers were mobilizing, and 2 deserters were somewhere in Sector 7. Commander Vekthorn arrived in a gunship. His face was twisted with rage. Desertion was an insult to the Empire. It was weakness made visible. It could not be tolerated. Find them, he roared. Kill them. Make it slow. 20 soldiers spread out through the sector. They had scanners, weapons, orders to shoot on sight. Tavren and Kolix were outnumbered, outgunned. They had no chance of survival, but they did not need to survive. They just needed to buy time. They met at the old bridge. It was the only route the evacuees could use. If the soldiers realized people were escaping through the tunnels, they would pursue. The bridge had to be held. Tavren and Kolix set up their position. Heavy weapons facing the approach. Ammunition stacked. Medical supplies ready. They did not plan to leave this bridge alive. But they would not leave it quickly either. The kill squad arrived. 20 soldiers in full combat armor. They saw the 2 deserters on the bridge and opened fire. Tavren and Kolix fired back. They knew Velkan tactics. They had trained with these soldiers. They knew exactly how the Empire fought. And they used that knowledge for 6 hours they held. 6 hours of constant fighting. Soldiers fell. Tavren took a shot to the shoulder. Kolix was hit in the leg. But they did not retreat. They kept firing. Kept fighting. Kept buying time. Commander Vekthorn arrived with reinforcements. He stood behind the line, watching through scanners. 2 deserters holding off 20 of his best soldiers. It was impossible. It was unthinkable, but it was happening. Because Tavren and Kolix were not fighting for the Empire. They were fighting for something more important. They were fighting for children who deserved to live free. A message came through on the stolen communicator. It was Nari. The evacuees had reached the mountains. The children were safe. Hyun was safe, Tavren smiled. His purple blood was everywhere. His armor was cracked. His vision was fading, but he smiled. We did it, he said to Kolix. His friend nodded. He was in worse shape. Multiple wounds, bleeding badly, but he was smiling too. Worth it, Kolix whispered. Tavren activated his helmet camera.
One last message.
He looked directly into the lens. His voice was weak but clear. This is Tavren, Unit 15. I am a deserter, a traitor, and I would do it again. The Empire told us humans were weak, but we were wrong. They are stronger than us in every way that matters. They have compassion, honor, love. They protect their weak instead of abandoning them. They help strangers instead of conquering them. He paused. Blood was in his mouth. He was dying, but he kept talking. A human child bought me dinner. He had nothing. He was starving, but he fed his enemy. That is strength. Real strength. The kind we never learned. The kind the Empire does not understand. Kolix added his voice. This war is wrong. We are on the wrong side. Any soldier watching this know the truth. Humans deserve mercy. They deserve freedom. What we are doing is evil. Tavren sent the message out on the military network. Every Velkan soldier on Earth would see it. Command would try to delete it. But it was too late. The message was already spreading. The final assault came. The commander was done waiting. Every soldier charged the bridge at once. Tavren and Kolix fired until their weapons were empty. Then they detonated the explosives they had planted. The bridge collapsed. Tons of concrete and metal fell into the ravine. The kill squad could not follow. The evacuees were safe. The path was closed. Tavren and Kolix lay in the rubble, broken, bleeding, but at peace. Did you ever think, Kolix said quietly, that we would die for humans? Tavren laughed. It hurt, everything hurt. But he laughed anyway. No, but it is a good death. An honorable death, the best, Kolix agreed. They closed their eyes. Above them, the sky was turning orange with sunset. Somewhere in the mountains, children were running free. A small boy with a kind heart was safe, and two soldiers who had been enemies became heroes. Not heroes of the Empire, heroes of something greater, heroes of conscience, heroes of compassion, heroes of the simple truth that kindness can change the world. Their hearts stopped. Their bodies went still. But their message kept spreading, and their sacrifice would never be forgotten. The video spread like fire. Every Velkan soldier on Earth watched it. The commanders tried to delete it. They blocked access. They punished anyone caught viewing it. But it was too late. You cannot unsee truth. Two decorated soldiers had died protecting human children. Two loyal warriors had called the war wrong. The Empire tried to call them traitors, but soldiers knew better. Those were not traitors. Those were heroes. Small changes started happening. A guard at a checkpoint who looked the other way during curfew. A patrol that forgot to report unauthorized gatherings. Ration shipments that had extra supplies. Little acts of mercy that multiplied across the city. The Empire noticed. They sent more troops, stricter commanders, harsher punishments. But they could not stop it. The crack had formed. And cracks always spread. More soldiers deserted. Not hundreds, not yet, but ones and twos. Enough to notice. Enough to matter. Each one left the same message. We cannot do this anymore. We will not do this anymore. The occupation was failing. Not from military defeat, from moral collapse. When soldiers question orders, armies fall apart. When warriors refuse to fight, wars end. 5 years passed. Hyun was 17 now, taller, stronger, but still kind. The war had ended. The Velkans had withdrawn. Not because humans won battles, but because the Empire could no longer maintain the occupation. Too many soldiers refused to serve. Too many officers questioned the mission. The cost of holding Earth became too high, not in credits or ships, in something more valuable, in the belief that what they were doing was right. Seoul was rebuilding, slowly, painfully, but it was happening. The broken buildings were being repaired. The streets were clean again. Children played in parks that had been battlefields. Today was the memorial. A ceremony for everyone lost during the occupation. Thousands of names carved in stone. Human names. And 2 Velkan names, Tavren, Kolix. The crowd was huge. People from all over the city. Nari stood near the front. She had gray in her hair now. The war had aged everyone. But she smiled when she saw Hyun approach the podium. Hyun looked out at all the faces. He had prepared a speech, written it carefully. But now, standing here, the words felt wrong. Too formal. Too distant. So he spoke from his heart instead. I was 12 years old when I met 2 Velkan soldiers, he began. His voice was quiet but steady. They looked hungry. I had 10 credits. I bought them dinner. That is all I did. I did not plan to start anything. I just saw 2 people who needed help. He paused. The crowd was completely silent. Everyone knew this story. But everyone wanted to hear it from him. Those soldiers were named Tavren and Kolix. They were our enemies. They had destroyed our city. They had killed our families. But they were also just people. People who could be hungry. People who could be lonely. People who could change. Hyun looked at the monument. At the 2 alien names among the human ones. They changed because of that meal. Because someone showed them kindness. Because we are all more than what our governments tell us to be. Tavren and Kolix chose to see humans as people, not enemies. And that choice cost them everything. His voice grew stronger. They saved 200 people. Children, elderly, families. They held a bridge for 6 hours against impossible odds. They died so others could live free. That is not betrayal. That is the greatest kind of courage. Hyun touched the monument. The stone was cool under his hand. We honor them today not as Velkans, not as aliens, but as brothers, as proof that morality is universal, that compassion knows no species, that a single act of kindness can topple empires. The war is over. We won, but not through weapons. We won because we remained human. We showed mercy when we could have shown hate. We helped our enemies when they needed it. We refused to let occupation destroy who we are. Hyun looked back at the crowd. He saw tears on many faces. He saw Nari nodding. He saw children who had been born after the war, learning what sacrifice meant. My mother used to say that kindness is its own strength. I did not understand when I was young, but I understand now. Being kind when the world is cruel, that takes more strength than any weapon. Being compassionate when you have every reason to hate, that is true power. Tavren and Kolix learned that. 2 alien soldiers learned what it means to be human, and they taught the galaxy what humanity really means. Not weakness, not surrender, but strength of the soul. He stepped back from the podium. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. The applause went on and on. After the ceremony, an old man approached Hyun. He was Velkan, one of the few who had stayed on Earth after the withdrawal. He wore simple clothes. No armor, no weapons. Just an old soldier far from home. I served with them, the old Velkan said. His human language was good. Better than most. Tavren was my squad leader. I watched that video. I deserted 3 days later. Many of us did. Hyun did not know what to say. This Velkan had given up everything. His career, his home, his entire life. Because of a message. Because of 2 friends, thank you, the Velkan said. For showing them kindness. For starting this. For proving we were wrong. Hyun shook his hand. The 4-fingered hand of a former enemy. The hand of someone who chose right over easy. Years passed. The story spread beyond Earth. Other species heard about the boy and the soldiers. About how compassion defeated an empire. About how one meal changed a war. The Velkan Empire never recovered. Other conquered worlds rebelled. Soldiers refused to fight. The whole system collapsed from within. Because once people saw that another way was possible, they could not go back. Nari started a school. Not just for human children. For all children. Human, Velkan, anyone. She taught them about Tavren and Kolix. She taught them that courage means standing up for what is right, even when it costs everything. A scholarship was created in their names. For children who demonstrated exceptional compassion. Hundreds of students received it over the years. Each one learned the story. Each one carried forward the lesson. Hyun became an ambassador. He traveled to new worlds, met new species, and everywhere he went, he told the same story. About 2 soldiers and a bowl of soup. About how small acts matter. About how being human means being kind. On Earth, the old communal kitchen still stood. It was a museum now. A memorial. People came from across the galaxy to see it. To sit at the table where enemies became friends. To understand what happened there. The Velkans who had deserted formed a community. They lived on Earth, helping rebuild what their empire had destroyed. They were proof that change was possible, that people could choose better. Treaties were signed. Trade agreements. Cultural exchanges. Humans and Velkans working together. It would have been impossible 5 years earlier. But Tavren and Kolix had shown the way. They had proven that the distance between enemy and friend was shorter than anyone thought. On the anniversary of their death, both species honored them. Humans and Velkans stood together at the monument. They placed flowers. They told stories. They remembered, and every year Hyun spoke. He was older now, middle-aged. But when he talked about Tavren and Kolix, he was 12 again. A small boy offering dinner to strangers, not knowing that simple act would change everything. The lesson spread. Other wars ended. Other species learned. Violence was not strength. Conquest was not honor. True power came from compassion. Real victory came from peace. Humanity became known across the galaxy not for weapons or technology, but for something else. For kindness that persisted even under occupation, for mercy shown to enemies, for the ability to change hearts through simple human decency. And it all started with 10 credits, a bowl of rice. A gesture of kindness from a child who just thought someone looked hungry. That was the real miracle. Not the battles, not the strategies, not the grand moments, but the small ones, the everyday choice to help instead of hurt, to feed instead of fight, to see people instead of enemies. On a hill overlooking Seoul, the monument stood tall, 2 Velkan names carved forever among human ones, proof that heroism knows no boundaries, that courage speaks every language, that love is truly universal, and every day people came, to remember, to learn, to understand the simple truth that had changed the galaxy, that kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not surrender, and one small human with a good heart can move mountains, or in this case topple an empire.